Hi, I'm Beth Williams of Chicks with Tools, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to make a desk out of reclaimed lumber. So the first thing is getting your reclaimed lumber, and I live in Georgia and we have a really great place south of us that is it's called Reuse the Past. So if you're local, I would check it out down in Grantville. And they have all sorts of repurposed stuff taken out of old buildings. And the wood I have here is taken out of a factory in our little town here. And these are, check out the thickness of these boards, okay? So they're about almost 3 inches thick. And they are floorboards from a factory, and they are meant to go together with what is called a spline. Some of you may have heard of tongue and groove. Well, this is actually groove and groove. So there's a groove on both sides. Sorry for the loud noise. And so the way they were put together was actually another piece of wood that would go in between these, holding them together. So for the desk that I'm going to be making, I don't want to see the splines or the groove on the facing edge. So I'm actually going to cut that off. But I do want to attach, this is gonna be 2 boards wide. So I wanna attach them with the spline in the center. So I'll be keeping 1 set of grooves. So the first thing we have to do is preparing the wood is a 2-step process. So one, for me, is going to be cutting off these splines, or I keep calling them that, but these extra pieces of wood. So I'm going to get it down to that groove depth. And the other thing is I'm going to take this wood through a planer. Not everybody has a planer. I actually got one for Christmas, so I know I'm not your average. Yeah, it's not all about jewelry for me. I do love my power tools. So anyway, so we'll take it through the planer, which is actually really fun. Any of you who like laminating things, it's sort of that same feeling. So it's just making things all clean. Now, some of you who like to use reclaimed wood, you probably want to keep it the really natural and kind of really aged look like this. But for what I'm using this for, I want to make it a cleaner look. And I also don't want to have to worry about dust and stuff like that. And one of my boards actually has some white paint on it, and it's only one board, so it's not like it's going to be a uniform look. So I want to take that white paint off of the surface. Okay, so I took these through on the table saw, and just so you know, these are super thick, and I didn't want to burn up my table saw. So I just set the blade depth so that it would just cut off the short edges one at a time. So I had to send it through, then flip it over, and then send it through again. And then to clean it up a little bit, I raised the blade all the way, but since I was just shaving off like 1/8 of an inch, it didn't put as much pressure on the saw. We have actually burned up a saw cutting something too thick before, so we've learned our lesson. Okay, I want to show you something. See how this part is clean and this part's still dirty? Well, that is because the wood was uneven in the first place. And what I discovered going through the first time is it was significantly uneven, which really caused problems, and even the auto feed on the planer didn't want to work because it was trying to take off too much meat at one time. So save yourself the hassle and just shave just the slightest bit off at a time. Well, I've been working on these 4 boards for over an hour, and I still have more to go. Turns out they were pretty uneven, and trying to get that white paint off, it's just sort of settled into a deep spot. So I'm just keep sending them through and sending them through. So I'll show you when they're all done. But I just wanted to let you know that, people think that it's cheaper to buy reclaimed wood or to use old wood. Well, I have to tell you, you make up for it in labor. So, if you see somebody who makes something really simple out of reclaimed wood and they processed it in any way, it took them some time. Like I said, I've been doing 4 boards, and I'm at the hour mark, and I probably have at least another 30 minutes, and that's just shaving off the surface. So there's still all the cutting and assembly to go. So just wanted to clue you in on that. I'm not gonna lie, I am worn out. I've been planing wood for the last 5 hours. And I told you, just because you get some inexpensive wood that has a lot of character, don't think that you're gonna get by with not doing much work on it, unless you want it just super rustic and then you just nail it together. So I have planed it over and over and over and over again to try and get it on so that all the boards are about the same thickness, preferably exactly the same thickness, but we didn't quite make that. So I do plan on doing some sanding after everything's all together. But I had to cut some splines out of some scrap wood. And so the splines, you can see, go in between and go inside that groove. Can you see that right there? And so I'm going to glue that. I'm also going to use some Kreg screws. If you don't know about the Kreg jig, I'll demonstrate that in just a minute. And so that will get a nice tight joint. So I've got my Kreg jig set up. This is a Kreg jig. It's got a clamp that comes separate, and this is just your basic kit, and I think it cost around $30. Totally worth it. Even though it looks like just a simple thing, it's totally worth it. And what it is a jig that helps you put in pocket screws. So it comes with a special drill bit that's extra long, and you adjust it for the length of your what screws you're going to put in, and also for the length or the thickness of your wood. So I just went to the maximum thickness because this wood is thicker than almost anything that you would use, you know, plank wise. So I think the easiest thing to do would be to put it on its edge. You can put the camera down, and then you be sure your drill is on high speed, and it's going to put 2 holes right next to each other. You don't have to use both of them, but I think I'm going to go on ahead and do that. So here we go. Okay, lesson learned here. Sometimes you just have to break out the big guns, because actually just trying to drill a couple holes, that's on high speed, which means it just about drained the battery just trying to drill 2 holes. So keep a corded drill around. I don't care how old it is. This came from my dad's garage. He probably got it, you know, who knows when. He might not have even been the first owner of it. But it does the job. I don't think it even has reverse, honestly, but all I need is forward. So it did a nice job drilling my holes. So lesson learned, if you have really dense wood, just go for the electrical type, not the battery operated drill. Okay, the next step is to liberally apply glue. My glue bottle doesn't work that great, so I just brush it on. Just keep in mind that if you get it on the actual surface, like any place that you're going to want to stain or put any sort of varnish or anything like that, it does not do well. It won't give you a nice finish, because what it's doing is it's sealing up the pores of the wood, and so then the stain or paint or whatever it is you're putting on there can't get in. That's particularly a problem if you're putting on some stain. So, which I don't think I'm going to be staining this anyway. But then, sorry about my dog. Then the next step is to put the spline inside, and then I'm going to put some more glue on the other side and then clamp it all together. So to assemble the sides to the top of this desk, I first put some pocket screws right here, just one there and one over there. And the reason I didn't do more is that this is not the full way that it's going to be attached together. I'm actually going to be putting in some giant dowel rods, so I wanted to leave spaces for the dowel rods. So we'll work on that next. I just drilled the holes for the dowel rods, and it was really hard. And fortunately, we have one of these drills, which is super, super powerful. And so that did the job, because I tried it just with the electric one, and it would have taken an hour, honestly. I'm not sure it would have ever made it. So, but to be sure that everything was square, I actually used my framing square and put it up against the side and the top, and I just pushed in on the whole unit to be sure that it was lined up correctly. So my holes are going where I want my holes to go. So the next thing I'm going to do is cut the dowels to about 4 inches, glue them up really well, and put them down in these holes. Okay, well, I'm finished for today. I got the pegs in here or dowel rods, and if you're wondering why I chose such a large size, it's because I actually had the dowel rod in the garage already. It was part of a quilt rack that I took apart to do something else with. Something you might not realize with wood is that it swells when it gets wet, and that means it swells a little bit when it gets glue on it. So that means 2 things. One, it's going to create a snug fit after it swells up. But secondly, you don't want to wait too long because it will swell up before you get it inside the place you want it to go. So these are the little covers for the holes that come with the Kreg jig. And I think I have a lot of them, but I think it actually makes for kind of a cool design detail. Well, I have been away for 2 weeks and therefore away from this desk for that period of time, which was actually nice. And I'm very happy to say that it is now finished. I came home to put 3 coats of polyurethane on the top and 2 on the body. The reason I did 2 on the body was because I just needed to even out the sheen, and the reason I put 3 on top was just for durability. So 2 tips about using oil-based polyurethane are that, number 1, you need to stir it really well, and you need to stir it actually while you are applying it, because it will separate very quickly, therefore leaving you with a really uneven surface. So definitely do that. And then the other thing is you need to sand lightly in between coats, and that way you will also end up with a nice smooth finish. And it will also work out any little bits of dust or bugs or whatever it is that landed in your polyurethane. So anyway, this is all done and it is cured, and so I'm going to install it in the cottage tomorrow, and then you can see it in place. So there you have it. This is our finished desk. It's a contemporary look with a matching stool. It's the perfect place for our guests to be able to work on their computers or eat a meal. It was a lot of work, I'm not gonna lie. I know it looks super simple, but because we were using repurposed wood and it was very hard and thick, it made it a real challenge. But I want you to still try it anyway. If you use newer wood, it will be a lot simpler, no question. So I hope you do try woodworking on your own, and look for more videos on YouTube.